god. It's the 12th of May. You know what that means? Tears of the Kingdom comes out today! Oh my god! Yes! Did you hear that? Tears of the Kingdom comes out today! 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 Coconuts have water in them. But also Tears of the Kingdom comes out today. Alright. It's finally out. It's finally out. Okay. Wait, if it's finally out. Oh man, I know what that means. It's there, right on the doorstep. Now the moment I've been waiting for. Dun, 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 dun. Time to return to the kingdom. Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another video game review. This time it is going to be on... I can't believe I'm finally doing this. But here it is. This is my review for The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I cannot tell you guys how hyped I was for this game. Like, I was probably hyped more than almost anyone else on the planet. Also, I know the shield wasn't in the skit earlier, but that's just due to the fact that I got this after I did the skit. So, yeah, but it's still in the video, so it counts. But anyways, let's talk about this game. This is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is something that I didn't even think we needed, but I'm glad that we got it. In this game, after the events of defeating Calamity Ganon, Link and Zelda are on a mission, and things start to change once they separate, and Zelda is lost, and Link has to go find her. Nobody in Hyrule knows where she is. All that we know is that Ganondorf has returned, and not like the Calamity Ganon thing or whatever, but the actual human-like version of Ganondorf. The actual speaking Ganondorf is back, and that was honestly an epic moment. That the fact that we got Ganondorf back, and so many other things that happened that paid more homage to the games that came way before Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild really changed the formula. That game was so big, and it was just so great. I consider it one of the best games ever made. Sure, people on the internet like to call the game overrated, or it didn't deserve the awards that it won. I honestly think it more than deserved it, because Nintendo just put so much care into the game and just made it just so, like, I don't know, like so massive that it's just hard to put down. I mean, you can do whatever you wanted in that game. You could do things in any specific order. It just gave you the freedom to do whatever you wanted. And there was no limits to what you couldn't do. And that's why I consider the game a work of art from Nintendo. It is a glorious game. To me, it's a game that will just never age. It's the type of game that I will just continue to play. And after my first playthrough, I played it again a second time and did many more things, because on my first playthrough, I didn't even do like half of the stuff. I only focused on the main missions, so that's why in Tears of the Kingdom, I was determined to do more than just the main missions. I wanted to do all the shrines, I wanted to do all the optional stuff, like the big optional stuff in order to get the true ending, like collect all the memories and stuff like that. There will be some spoilers, so I am going to warn you right now. And I know the game has been out for 3 weeks, I am really late, Why did it take me so long? Because it's Tears of the Kingdom. I know I was probably going to spend way more time on this than Breath of the Wild during my first playthrough, and I did. I spent more than 100 hours on this game, and I didn't even complete every single thing. Like, I did all the shrines, but I didn't get, like, all the Korok seeds. And I know there's also some other, like, mini quests that I haven't fully done, but I just wanted to make it to the 100-hour mark, pretty much, because I did take my time. I did make the most of my time, because this is a game that just expands more than what Breath of the Wild had. Now, some people have criticized the game for just being the same game, just with new added features, but literally, there are tons of great video game sequels that have so many similarities to its predecessors, like the Dark Souls series, Left 4 Dead 2, Call of Duty, obviously, but I don't really play Call of Duty, so I don't know all, but I am a massive Legend of Zelda fan, so let me just say this. Is the game better than Breath of the Wild? Well, I can tell you this. It's just as good as that. This game just simply did not disappoint me a single bit. This was just what I wanted from a sequel to Breath of the Wild, one of my all-time favorites, and yeah, there's just so much that separates this apart from its predecessor. Of course, I need to talk about it, like the new features it has, the new abilities that Link has. Link has like a new arm, like which is just like covered in like metal stuff, and he has new abilities too to separate apart from Breath of the Wild. Like he doesn't have the same ones that he had in the first game, unfortunately, but he does have some really new neat ones, like the building mechanic. Like you can pretty much attach like any detachable thing and attach it onto another thing to make like a vehicle and stuff, which is something that I was a little bit worried about. Like, was this something that you had to do a lot? Well, yes, but it was actually really fun, building, specific vehicles in order to get to specific areas, because you will be exploring so many areas that aren't just above the surface, but in the sky too, and in the underworld known as the depths. The depths is just as a very important place as the above and the very above world. It's like you were exploring heaven and hell. It just felt so good doing, and I just had so much fun getting to the specific areas in the sky, because it was certainly not an easy feat. Nope, not so ever. But we do have these new enemies and new, like, robot types that are kind of like the Guardians, which aren't in the game, but they're replaced by these new guys called Zonai. And Zonai, you can use, like, when you defeat them, you can use, like, specific parts of their bodies, and they'll have like battery elements, and you'll need batteries a lot, or your energy battery thing, because that's a big key here in order for you to run vehicles and specific items throughout the game, because Zonai are pretty much the biggest key here, and they're pretty much the main source of power to this entire game. And I had a lot of fun fighting the Zonai, and I had a lot of fun using their pieces to craft certain vehicles so I could get to certain areas. I should also mention that there are a lot more areas throughout this game, specifically hidden areas that you can discover to find new treasures and fight off against different enemies, because there are far more enemies in this game and mini-bosses to fight. Like, you do have the returning ones, like the Hinox and the Rock Guy, but there are new enemies to fight, like this Cube Man and this three-headed dragon, and a lot of them aren't too easy, specifically the dragons. Like, the dragons kick my ass really good. So, yeah, that's another thing I should mention about this game, too, is the boss fights. It really separates it apart from Breath of the Wild. Like, no longer are you fighting a different version of the same boss. Like, you don't fight, like, a different elemental version of the same boss. No, it actually pays more homage to bosses that we've seen before, or kind of like in Zelda games that weren't like Breath of the Wild whatsoever. So that's another thing I absolutely love here, is that it definitely makes it feel like it pays more homage to previous Zelda games. And there are more dungeons too. I mean, not a whole lot. You do have to meet up with in the same areas, just like in Breath of the Wild, but it really wasn't a bother, as when you meet up with new characters, they actually manage to become your allies throughout your journeys. And once you're done with beating the dungeons, they actually stick with you throughout the rest of the game. Well, sort of. You can like equip like these rings that give like holographic versions of themselves, which do manage to be helpful, which you can upgrade them later down the line with these powers that are kind of like the spirits you get from the shrines throughout the game. And there are like 5 different ones, and all of them have unique abilities. And there are returning characters and new characters alike, like some familiar faces from the previous game, like in the Zora and the Goro and all those other types of races throughout the game. But it was really nice seeing new characters and returning characters as well, and seeing them have much bigger parts to the entire game. And it was really nice to see. Also, you do collect memories just like in Breath of the Wild, though they're a bit easier to come by. Link still has his memories and all that, but he manages to find memories that Zelda has had with these little puddles called tears, which of course Link can absorb in order to see those memories, and you're going to need to collect all of them if you want to get to the true ending. And I managed to do that, and I was really satisfied. Now, the first game certainly wasn't easy. It definitely had a bit of challenge. I mean, it doesn't matter how many hearts you get, you can still get defeated pretty easily if you're not careful and if you're not using the right weapons or the right materials. And yes, your weapons can still break, but what makes the game feel even more difficult is the new challenges that the shrines had. Like, there are new different challenges that you can do rather than just fighting enemies, but having limits to what you can have during those shrines. Like, there are times where you have to collect like what they have in order for you to fight back against the Zonai in certain dungeons. Though there are those dungeons where in order for you to like get to them, you have to get like these crystals and bring them back over there. There weren't that much of a struggle. It's just there's a bit too many of those, but it's not really a negative. It's just there are a lot of really challenging shrines, and then there are those that are just, you know, I don't know how to put it. Just you just take a rock over there, and then boom, the shrine's complete. But needless to say, I had a lot of fun with the shrines. Probably not as much as in Breath of the Wild, but needless to say, most of them do provide a pretty good challenge. And they're a bit easier to find too, with that glowing spiral. Also, what's really cool is that even though your weapons do break, there actually is an ability to make them stronger. And by that, I mean you have the ability to fuse specific materials with the weapons. Like, say, if you wanted a stick and a rock, you can fuse it together. Boom, you got yourself a hammer. Also, another thing that kind of makes this game a bit more challenging too is it doesn't have like elemental arrows, like there's no ice or fire or electric arrows. You have to get like specific materials in order for you to fuse them in order to get elemental like arrows. And yes, technically you do explore the same world of Hyrule. Like, that's not really something that I was bothered with. I mean, I kind of knew that it was going to be, the same world, but with more areas to explore. Like, it really didn't bother me because I knew Link wasn't going to go anywhere after the events of Breath of the Wild because, where was he going to go? Like, really. But needless to say, the game just had so much going for it. Another mechanic that I found to be very useful is the rewind mechanic. Like, say if there was like a brick falling from the sky, you could use the rewind mechanic, get on the rock, and go up to the sky as it goes in reverse. And that managed to be very helpful throughout a lot of the puzzles that I tended to try and solve. And what's also a really unique one is the ability to merge up to the ceiling in order to get to specific areas. There were times where, when I first got that, there were times where I initially forgot about it throughout a lot of my playtime, but I got used to it, and I managed to use it a lot throughout my adventure. There are also new different ways to get Korok seeds. There's about 100 more of them. Like, you have to bring like Koroks to their friends in certain parts in order to get the seeds, but they give you 2 seeds once you do manage to reunite them together. And there was quite a bit of those, and they do provide a bit of a challenge because you have to, sometimes you have to build vehicles in order to get over there. Also, the fairies. You don't just unlock the fairies with rupees. No, you have to get these this band together, and you have to escort them all the way up there. It was kind of a hassle to get through, but it still was nice to see that there would be more to the fairy quests rather than just giving her rupees. But hey, I had a lot of fun with these quests. Most of them, I mean, a lot of them are just fetch quests, but The game has far more quests. In fact, I don't know how many quests there are total, but I know I did not do all of them. But it's the type of game where you just, you're probably not going to complete everything in your first playthrough. And that's not really a problem because this is a game where you're just going to have to spend hours exploring every hidden little detail because there are so many little details throughout the game that it was impossible to see all of them. And of course, you can cook again. There are new ingredients and new ways to combine and make certain meals. Like there's a recipe, there's a thing where you can check for recipes, which I found to be very useful. It made make cooking a lot easier if I wanted to make the same thing again. I should also mention that Zelda sort of appears throughout a lot of the game, though not really. I mean, there are times where you think you're going to interact with her, but then it's more of an illusion, but it's something that I found very unique about the game. It gives us more of that sort of Zelda screen time, but at the same time, I mean, because it's not really Zelda, it doesn't really matter all that much. Now, what really makes this game a bit more of a challenge is the gloom. Like, the gloom is probably your biggest enemy here. When you're exploring the depths, if you touch like this red puddly stuff for too long, it'll decrease your health. And it'll just keep going down until you go back to the surface. Or if you make a meal, that will replenish your health while you're still at the bottom of the depths. And you replenish them when you're in like these like checkpoint areas down the depths. But it can be your worst nightmare, especially when you get towards the end of the game, which I'm not going to spoil, but it did provide a bit of a challenge. But then again, I was still able to manage to get past it. But you really got to be careful. There are times where the game can be far more challenging than Breath of the Wild. It honestly made Breath of the Wild feel more like a cakewalk. But Tears of the Kingdom has so many new armor sets that you don't really need amiibos for. I mean, it would be a lot faster if you used amiibos, but those costumes are still in the game, which there's a lot of them. I didn't even get like half of them, but I just went with the best one to upgrade, and I was pretty satisfied with the armor that I chose. There is just so much homage that this game pays tribute to for the previous games, but still being its own separate game, and it just does so much that really manages to separate it from Breath of the Wild. Now, people have also complained by the fact that the game does not run very well. I mean, Breath of the Wild didn't, but it made people really wish that we did have a Nintendo Switch Pro. But I think there might be some time in the future where Nintendo will announce its next console, so yeah, but I didn't really care that the game wasn't 60 FPS. I mean, the game still plays great, and I never ran into a major bug or glitch. I was still able to have myself a great experience. And if I did something, not successful, then most of it was on me. But the game just had so much that I just did not want to give up on it because it still has its great amount of challenges and its amount of content that it's not the type of game where you can just play through it in one sitting. You really have to take your time with these types of games, and this is a game that I really, really tried taking my time with. And from the amount of content that I got, I was more than satisfied with the end result. And in the end, guys, Tears of the Kingdom is everything I wanted from it. And while the stuff that I did talk about, I was a little bit nitpicky with, it still doesn't hide the fact that the game to me is still a fantastic experience. In fact, I can consider it a masterpiece and a game that I'm going to remember just as much as Breath of the Wild. You may just call it Breath of the Wild 1.5. I call it a new game. It does a lot to separate it apart. It's with its massive amount of content and with the amount of non-limits throughout the game, it's just what I wanted it to be. Nintendo really, really went all out here. They gave it all with this one, and to me, it's truly a work of art, and Nintendo really deserves all the praise that it's been getting. It's not the type of game where you can just play through it and you just... yeah, it's the type of game that you're probably going to be playing for hours, just like I did. It's the game that I spent the second most time with, and I wouldn't mind playing through it again. But of course, there are more games that I have to play that are going to be coming out, like Street Fighter 6, Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16, but yeah. But needless to say, with all those games coming out, I doubt that they're going to top Tears of the Kingdom for me, because Tears of the Kingdom is a work of art that Nintendo they just gave me exactly what I needed. I am more than happy with the end result here. I had so much fun with it, and if this becomes a trilogy, then I am all on board, because this is truly an epic new franchise for the Zelda formula, and it shows that it hasn't gotten stale yet, and I don't think it ever will. And there's a big reason why it's my favorite franchise of all time. And now, with all that being said, I can finally give it the rating that it really, truly deserves. Now look, just because I'm giving it a perfect score and the stuff that I said before, like the mild nitpicks that I have with it, I still think it's worthy of a perfect score. It doesn't mean like it's fully perfect, like hell. Breath of the Wild isn't fully perfect, like all games aren't fully perfect, but the reason I mentioned this a couple times, but the reason why I give it I say perfect score isn't because it's fully perfect. It's just a perfect score. It's a game that I consider worthy of a perfect score. So, it doesn't always mean a perfect game, but needless to say, I can say it's a work of art, and masterpieces still have their flaws, but hey, I still think it's more than worth your time, and I truly do think it's worthy of a perfect score. Let me know what you guys think. Do you love it more than Breath of the Wild? Do you like it less? All I can say is that I loved every second that I've had with this game, even with the mild annoyances. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.